All right, section 4.2, part 1. Later on, we are going to have another part to this chapter where we'd actually discuss a shortcut, okay, but we won't do that until after we finish dividing, which is section 4.3. Okay, so but in this section, we're going to add, subtract, and multiply polynomials. So our objectives, again, are to add and subtract polynomials and to multiply polynomials. Okay. A reminder from Algebra 1, you can only add and subtract like terms. This idea of like terms are alike if they have the exact same variable part. Okay, so example of like terms, 4x squared and 6x squared, because they're both x squared. Not alike would be, in this case, I don't know, like 3x, because this is an x squared, this is an x, so you cannot add them. They have to have the exact same variable part, okay? But they need the exact same variable part when they're simplified. Sometimes it can look a little confusing because like you'll have 4xy and then you'll have 6yx. Those are technically the same variable parts, except one's in alphabetical order, one's in not. Okay, so these are like terms. We could add them and end up getting a 10xy when we add them. So when we add like terms, really we're identifying, are they like? So we identify our like terms, and then we add their coefficients. So I always like to think of this as things. Like if I have 4 cats and 6 cats, I add them, I have 10 cats. I don't have 10 cats squared. Okay, I have 10 cats. Okay, so first step is identifying like terms, and this is where it's sometimes useful to use different colors. So I'll be using some different colors here. So here we're adding this polynomial to this polynomial. So I'm going to identify like terms. Well, here I have a 3x to the third. Do I have any other x to the thirds? Oop, I have that one there. So that's only one of them. Here there's 3 of them. If I have 3 of something and one more of that, I have 4 of them. So I have 4x to the third. Okay, now here we have a 2x squared. So do I have any other x to the seconds? Oh, I've got right there, but that's a negative 10x to the seconds. So I have a positive 2x to the second plus a negative 10x to the second. So if I have 2, I take away 10, I'm left with negative 8x to the seconds. Okay, so again, we're just looking at our like terms. Okay, here I have a negative x. Again, that's only one of them. So sometimes it's helpful with people to actually write the 1 in there. Negative 1x. Do I have any other x's? I don't. That's it. So I have nothing to add to that. So we'll just write negative x. Okay, and then last here we have a negative 7 and a positive 8. A negative 7 plus a positive 8 gives me a positive 1. And now we want to look to make sure we're in a good order. We always want to be decreasing in our variable, x to the third, x to the second, 1x and 1, so that we're done. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and let's do one more. Okay. All right, so here again we're identifying like terms. So here I have a 9y to the third. Do I have any other y to the thirds? We're adding. Again, always look to see, are we adding, are we multiplying, what are we doing in the middle? So a lot of times highlighters are helpful. Here we're adding, here we're adding. Okay, so I don't have any other y to the third, so I'll just have a 9y to the third. Okay, so now let's switch. Let's see here, we've got 3y to the second. Do I have any other y to the seconds? Oh, yep, right there, a negative 5. So positive 3, negative 5 gives me a negative 2 y to the second. Okay. And now, let's see, I've got a negative 2y. So now we'll look for any other y's. Oh, there's one right there, and again, that's one of them. So I have a negative 2 plus 1 gives me a negative 1y, so we'll just write it as negative y. And then last, we have a plus 1, negative 4, positive 1, minus a 4 gives me a negative 3. So now let's look, are we in decreasing? Yes, we are. So there's my final answer. I have no other like terms, 9y to the third minus 2y to the second minus y minus 3. So I know I'm done. I have no other like terms. Okay, when subtracting, a little hint when it comes to subtracting. Distribute in the negative. distribute in the negative. Okay, because when it comes to subtracting, if I had 4 minus 8, I always think of that as 4 adding a negative 8. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to think of this subtract as adding a negative. So I'm adding a negative in here. So this negative applies to everything in here, not just the first term. Just like we were adding everything in here, we're subtracting everything in here. So my very first step before you do any looking for like terms, rewrite the problem, distributing that negative in. So then it would be plus, now I distribute this negative into everything in here. So my positive 2x to the third becomes negative 2x to the third. My positive 6x squared becomes negative 6x squared. My negative x becomes positive x. My positive 1 becomes negative 1. Changes the sign of everything. And now I'm adding. Okay? Please do this. I can guarantee that every one of you will make at least one mistake if you don't distribute that negative in. Okay? I see it year after year after year. People are like, I don't need to distribute that negative. I know I'm just subtracting. But then when we're subtracting a negative, we forget that that's the same as adding, and it messes everything all up. Okay, so now like terms. So we have 8x to the third. We're adding now a negative 2x to the third. 8x plus negative 2x gives me positive 6x to the third. Okay, and then now we have a negative 3x squared, negative 6x squared. Again, we're adding. Negative 3 plus negative 6 gives me negative 9x squared. Okay, and then we have a negative 2x, positive 1x, negative 2 plus a 1 gives me a negative x. And then last, positive 9 minus a 1. 9 minus a 1 gives me a positive 8. So now we have 6x to the third minus 9x squared minus x plus 8. Make sure you don't have any other like terms. Circle your answer, you're done. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and let's do one more. Again, my first step to recognize, oh, it's a subtraction. So I need to rewrite that as an add and distribute my negative in. So 2z to the second plus 3z plus, now distribute my negative into this guy, negative 3z to the second minus z plus 4. It just changes the sign of everything. Okay, now like terms. 2z to the second, negative 3z to the second gives me a negative 1z to the second. 3z minus z gives me a positive 2z. Now everything's accounted for except for that last add 4. There's no other like term to it, so we just have an add 4. Negative z to the second plus 2z plus 4. Okay, now to multiply. Okay, now when I'm multiplying, and it's to notice that between my two parentheses, there's nothing in between here. So that tells me it's a multiply. Sometimes it's useful to come in and put that little dot in between there. So this is a multiply. So since it's a multiply, I know I need to distribute. Okay. It doesn't matter which way you distribute, whether I take this and distribute it into there, or take this and distribute it into there. It doesn't matter. Okay. I'm gonna take the first one, distribute it into the second. So I'm gonna start here with this negative x to the second. I'm going to take this negative x to the second times both of these things. So negative x to the second times a positive x gives me a negative x to the third. And then negative x to the second times a negative 3. Negative times a negative is positive. That would give me 3x to the seconds. So I'm done distributing my negative x to the second. So now we need to distribute the 2x. So I'm going to take the 2x times the x. 2x times x is 2x to the second. 2x times the negative 3 gives me negative 6x. Okay, last one, we need to distribute the 4. Sorry for all the clicking. Distribute the 4. So we take the 4 times the x, that's 4x. And then the 4 times the negative 3 is negative 12. Okay, so you might be like, woohoo, I'm done. Nope, I need to simplify. I need to put together like terms. Okay, so now my like terms, here's an x to the third. I don't have any other x to the third, so it's negative x to the third. Took care of that guy. Okay, do you see how I kind of mark up my work as I work along? Okay, so here I have a 3x to the second. Here's a 2x to the second. Don't see any others, so 3 plus 2 gives 5x to the second. Okay, those two guys are gone. A negative 6 out of the 4, 6x plus 4x gives me a negative 2x, because now we're adding, we're not multiplying, and then my minus 12. So I have negative x to the third plus 5x squared minus 2x minus 12. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and let's do another one. Again, we distribute. So I'm going to start by distributing the y through. So take y times 3y squared, so that's going to give me 3. I've got 2 y's, one more, so that'd be y to the third. Y times negative 2y, negative 2y to the second, and a y times the 2 plus 2y. So there's me distributing the y in. Now let's distribute in the 5. So the 5 times the 3y squared is 15y squared. The 5 times the negative 2y gives me negative 10y. And the 5 times the 2 gives me plus 10. Okay, last but not least, put together my like terms. So there's 3y to the third. There's only the one of them. Okay, now y to the second. So I've got negative 2y to the second plus 15y to the second. That gives me 13y to the seconds. Got those guys taken care of. 2y minus 10y gives me negative 8y. Those are taken care of, and then plus 10. There's my final answer. Okay. All right, now onto some slightly more difficult multiplication problems. There's just 2 more. This first one here, it says multiply x minus 1 times x plus 4 times x plus 5. I'm multiplying 3 things. These are all multiplies. There's nothing in between here. So they're multiplies. We can come in and put our little dots in, multiply, multiply. Okay. A very common mistake is to try to multiply this and distribute it through everything. Okay, but we have to think back to like, I don't know, 2nd, 3rd grade when we were multiplying. If I'm multiplying 3 things, 2 times 5 times 4, I don't multiply the 2 times the 5 and the 2 times the 4. We multiply 2 to start with, 2 times 5 is 10, and then multiply it by the one that's left. We get 40. That's what we do here. We multiply 2 of them to start with, and then multiply by the last one. Okay, so you pick 2 to multiply. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to pick the last 2. I'm going to multiply these 2 because they're both positive. Positives, I don't know. We'll stick the positives together. So this x minus 1 will stay out there, so I'm just going to multiply these 2 together. So first I'm going to multiply by the x, have to distribute. X times x is x to the second. X times 5 is 5x. Okay, now multiply by the 4. 4 times the x is 4x. 4 times the 5 is 20. So put together my like terms, I end up with x squared. 5x and 4x is 9x plus 20. Okay, so I have x squared plus 9x plus 20, but I still need to multiply it by this guy. So by the x minus 1. So we bring that down, and now we start the process over again. Let's multiply by the x into this whole thing. So x times x squared, x to the third, x times 9x is 9x squared, x times 20 is 20x. Okay, now we multiply by negative 1. Negative 1 times x, negative x squared, negative 1 times 9, negative 9x, negative 1 times 20, minus 20. Now put together your like terms. I have an x to the third. Nope, no other of those. 9x squared, negative x squared. Going to be positive 8x squared. Those 2 guys. 20x minus 9x gives me plus 11x. Get rid of those guys, and then a minus 20. Okay, all right, last example. Find the product of 9y minus 2 quantities squared. Okay, it's important to remember what an exponent does. If I have 5 to the second, this is the same as 5 times 5. So 9y minus 2 to the second, it means I'm taking this, 9y minus 2, times itself. So I have to take 9y minus 2 times 9y minus 2. You cannot just square both pieces. Okay, it doesn't work that way because you have to distribute. Okay, so I have to take 9y minus 2 times 9y minus 2. So let's multiply by 9y. 9y times 9y. 9 times 9, 81. Y times y is y squared. 9y times negative 2, negative 18y. Now multiply by the negative 2. Negative 2 times 9y, negative 18y. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So put together like terms. I'm left with 81y to the second minus 18 is negative 36y plus 4. Okay, so again, just a word of caution, and we'll do a big bold thing here. 9y minus 2 to the second is not equal to 9y squared minus 2 squared. Okay, not equal. Don't do this. Okay, it happens every year over and over and over again. I have it written up by my clock in my room so we don't forget. We have to take it times itself. Okay, because if not, we don't get that middle term. What ends up happening is this guy right here ends up getting left out. Okay, all right, so write the practice now at the bottom of your page. Do all of the practice, please. Okay, and then on to 4.3 video and video and practice.